So welcome to this basic presentation on the Gita Govinda. I say it's basic because I'm not speaking from inside the tradition, and I'm not a specialist on the Gita Govinda in academic circles. Instead, what I'm trying to do in this presentation is to provide just a basic introduction for the purposes of this Song of Songs course that will help, first of all, provide a brief approximate introduction to the basic characters and the plot that are assumed in the Gita Govinda so that you'll understand your reading more, and also provide just a little bit of background on its composition. In doing this, I want to fully state that I'm relying on another scholar, a very well-regarded specialist on the Gita Govinda, Barbara Stoler-Miller. In particular, her monograph, The Love Song of the Dark Lord, Jayavada's Veda's Gita Govinda, from which the translation selections that you're reading was taken. So first, let's talk some about the characters in this story. First of all, of course, is Krishna, who is seen within Hinduism as the eighth incarnation or avatar of Vishnu, and is often regarded as a supreme god himself. Krishna is also referred to by many other epithets, and you'll see these in the poem, such as Hari, or Madhava, or Madhu's killer, or Govinda. Other epithets are Vasudeva, Jadisa, and many, many more. In addition, the poem will start, the selections you read, with the cowherdesses, or gopis, who are lured out of their homes and away from their husbands by Krishna's flute playing to dance and make love with him by the river Jumna. In some legends, they circle Krishna, and Krishna multiplies himself to pair with all of them. Another major character in the Gita Govinda is Radha, who's one of these cowherdesses or gopis, and at least according to some ways the legend is rendered, she initially pairs with Krishna and then separates from him and is jealous of his bonds with the other gopis before she eventually reunites with him. This is in fact the basic plot of the Gita Govinda. We start with his lovemaking with the gopis, and then the separation of Radha from Krishna and their longing for each other. And then it concludes with Krishna's vigorous invitation to Radha to rejoin with him and their final reuniting and postscript. Along the way, you'll also see a brief reference in sections 4 and 5 to Radhika's friend, a friend of Radha, who serves as a go-between between Krishna and Radha. And then finally, we'll see references in the poem to Jayavada himself, the author-poet of this work. Now let's take a quick look at the selections that you'll be reading. We start after the first three sections of Part 1, and that will be with the last part of Part 1, which talks about Krishna's dalliances with the gopis. In the second part, we'll see something about the departure of Radha, her fantasy and jealousy about Krishna as she thinks about him while he's away. The third part is from Krishna's point of view as he searches for and misses Radha. In the fourth part, we meet the friend of Radha who's speaking to Krishna, referred to as Madhava, about Radha and her longing for him. The fifth part then goes to the friend speaking with Radha, where she tells her of Krishna's love and longing for her. Then I've skipped parts 6 through 9 in order to have a manageable focus for the class. But I'm having you read the 10th part, which is Krishna's invitation to Radha to rejoin him. It's distinguished by a particular part in section 8, where he invites her to put her foot on him, a section that caused some consternation to Hindu theologians over time. Then we skip part 11, and then we have the 12th and concluding part, where Krishna again invites Radha to trample on his garden, and then their renewed lovemaking in a postscript to the poem. So, just some background on this. First of all, Jayaveda was a poet who wrote Sanskrit poetry, including the Gita Govinda, in the late 12th century in Bengal, in a royal court. According to legend, and Stoller Miller doesn't think there's a lot of historicity to it, but it's an interesting background to the poem. He is said that to be a monk, a celibate monk, until a Brahmin convinced him that Krishna had ordered that, I'm sorry, the PowerPoint's incorrect, that Jayaveda marry his daughter Padmavati, who was a temple dancing girl. And according to the legend, Jayaveda wrote the Gita Govinda while watching Padmavati dance. The relationship of the gopis, who represent devoted believers, and Krishna is celebrated in the Ras Leela dance. So there's some interaction between the images in the Gita Govinda and rituals within the Vaisnava cult of Hinduism. Now, 200 years later, another Bengali poet, Vidyapati, adapted imagery from the already famous Gita Govinda to render the love story of his human royal patron. Some questions to think about in relation to the Song of Songs. First of all, I invite you to consider the particular way that the Gita Govinda, in this case, depicts male and female love dynamics, and compare this with the Song of Songs, similarities and differences. And there'll be another presentation that I give for this week where I talk in a more differentiated way about how the different parts of the Songs of Songs depict these male-female dynamics in slightly different ways. In addition, I can invite you to consider the different way that the Gita Govinda, along with the legend of its writing and its afterlife in Vidyapati's poetry about human love, is working in an interesting way with the dynamics of human and divine love. And in this respect, you should be aware that Barbara Stoller Miller is critical of purely allegorical readings of the Gita Govinda. She thinks it's a bit more complex than simply depicting divine human love.